Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast, presented by the Soft Lights Foundation and the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Lots of changes coming to the Restoring Darkness podcast that we'll announce as they take a little bit of time to create. Have patience with us, listeners. We're redoing a lot of things here. And our guest today is Michael Calhoun. He's an environmental activist from Vernonia, Oregon. I got Vernonia right, but then I mispronounced Oregon. He is currently a board chair of the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District. We're going to post some links to some of the things that Michael is doing, and along with his LinkedIn profile. So if you wanted to connect with him, you'll find those things in the show notes or at the bottom of the YouTube video. Scott will put them there. And I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Mark Baker from Soft Lights Foundation. I know we just spoke yesterday. The release schedule and the record schedule are not exactly the same, folks. Sometimes we record a couple days before we release. But Mark, give me another Soft Lights update just for the listeners out there. What do you got cooking right now?
Yeah, Michael, tomorrow's a big day for us. I have a hearing, federal court, in my lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The government is trying to get my lawsuit dismissed, and they've been withholding documents from the government. So tomorrow is my chance to tell the judge that this case needs to move forward and that the NHTSA and FDA need to collaborate with each other as per the law. So tomorrow's a big day.
Did you ever read the story David and Goliath?
Well, I've heard about it.
Those are some big names across the table from you there, Mark Baker. Wow. So we wish you luck tomorrow, and Godspeed to you, brother, because those are some big opponents you're facing down, and it takes guts to do stuff like that. Michael Calhoun, welcome to the Restoring Darkness podcast.
Thank you both for having me. And oh no, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I'm here to talk about an effort I've been working on in my hometown. I could kind of talk about how I got into it in the first place and the journey that continues. First of all, the environmental work that I'm in, it's such a large umbrella, the environment, that eventually light pollution did come into that. I was in college at the University of Oregon, and I read an article, a local paper we had, and it was talking about high-pressured sodium. Didn't know what it was, but that they were being phased out in favor of LEDs. And I'm a very nostalgic person, so I never really thought twice about the streetlights. So that's kind of the spark that got me into all of the stuff that I'm doing now.
And what is it that you're doing now in the light pollution space? I noticed that it said that you're the board chair of the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District. I guess that role is making you reach into other forms of emerging pollution that maybe we're becoming more aware of now?
Yeah, a lot of the work they do, especially, is river restoration, but it's all encompassing for sustainability in the county. And every board member there brings kind of a different perspective, different background. And then for me, in where I'm at, Vernonia, it's a small town in Oregon, population about 2,000. It has a history of logging and then has become more of a recreational community. And of all the cities in the county, it's one of the most isolated. So, we felt it was appropriate to begin a project to address night pollution.
Yeah, it's interesting that there seems to be a lot of Canadians and people that live in nature that are in the early stages of the movement, Michael. And so you live in a very rural or wilderness area in Oregon, and you had HPS lighting in the past, and somebody impugned your beautiful environment with 5,000 K LED lights, I take it.
And I imagine your listeners, I could recap that, but imagine the audience was familiar with Kelvin rating, lumens,
Sure.
etc. But our town, still the majority of it residential streets, especially, I'd say 80-85% is still high pressured sodium. Our
Mm.
main street, however, had a conversion in 1999 with 34 acorn style lights with the
Hmm.
glass globe. And I'm not familiar with what they use between 99 and 2019, but in 2019 is when they switched to the 5,000 lumen and 5,000 Kelvin LEDs. So it is very bluish white
Hmm.
downtown. It reminds me of a hospital,
It's
but
gross.
so
Yeah, light pollution is
it's
gross. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me just walk it back a couple technical questions. So, were the old when before they retrofitted the acorns from conventional light source to an LED light source, they retrofitted. They didn't replace them, right? They retrofitted the inside, or did they replace the heads?
well, they were running into that issue now. Half of them are A38, the size anyway, and the others
Yep.
are 26. But we don't know which ones are which. If it were me, it would be preferable to have them switched and all be the same, either or. But
But no, let me
pick
just
one
ask you:
because
did they take the old heads out and put on new heads, or did they just keep the old heads and retrofit them?
retrofit them. Yeah,
Okay. So
just
they have the old heads.
and
The old heads in the past, were they like an orangey color, like a much warmer color? Do you remember the lights from the
not
past
too
ones?
much to my memory. It's always been, at least since '99, it's been this more whitish color. I don't know if it was a halogen based or an
No, that would probably
incandescent.
be metal halide. So the old lights were metal halide, and metal halide is between 3,500 and 4,000 Kelvin, unless they purchased a really high specialty lamp. So then they converted the insides to LED, and the problem is that you've gone from 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin, and it's much brighter. Is that the problem? Like it feels like it's brighter?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier about the high pressured sodium, that's what kind of got me into this. I did miss the boat on when this was happening in 2019 because I was in school at the time. I came back around COVID 2020, and I've been here since and worked on a variety of different projects. And it came up that the sodiums were going out, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could address the downtown corridor first, so that the entrance to Vernonia, everybody gets to see what a difference the color makes. But yeah, it is a pretty. I'm 3 miles out of town in the woods, so I do see black sky all the north and the west. But when I look to the east, I can see the glow from Vernonia, and it's only again population 2,000, so it's a bit much for a community this size.
Has the glow begin to change? Because I have my father-in-law has a cottage in I don't know northern Ontario. It's like North Ontario's enormous, so it's kind of in southern northern Ontario, but it's up there. And the town that's close to us has changed from the glow of warm HPS into like a weird purplish kind of gooey color from the LED mix in the with the HPS. Do you see the same thing on the night horizon when you look at your town?
It's you're getting more progressive because of the switch over to
Mm.
LEDs. We're about 15-20 miles from any nearest town, but it is the glow of that kind of whitish color is increasing, and that's what we're trying to do is get ahead of the curve to address it now before the entire town switches to a standard of 4 to 5,000 Kelvin.
Mm. So there's good news for you from before we go over to Mark Baker. I'm sure he's got a couple questions he's itching to ask. But there's good news. Because the fixtures have been retrofitted, it means that they can be fixed probably very inexpensively. They can be repaired. Now, Mark Baker would advocate to restore them to switch them from the previous metal halide to an HPS. I would say my position would be that we would do it with a high lumen warm LED lamp. That would work good in that application as well and restore the color that you're after. May not solve all the problems that Mark talks about on the show, which we can get to in a minute. But the good news is that you have time and it's not that expensive and your town's almost the perfect size to be like an example of this, Michael. Like we could stop them and we could say, "Hey, look, you need to stop right now because you're going to wreck this thing." And then everyone's going to start to become defensive and get all weird, like on the Sasha Rodoy show we did the other day, where people are going to start becoming defensive at the town because they spent all this money. So it's a good time to intervene, Michael. So congratulations to Michael, Mark, for getting involved early, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, I read about Michael's work in a news article, and so I was really impressed. So our listeners, we kind of given away, but he's actually accomplished something already, which he hasn't spoken about yet.
Okay.
So there is a really good news that he's going to tell us here in a second. So Michael, it's really kind of shocking to hear that the town installed 5,000 Kelvin. That's sort of a rarity, like that. Davis, California, was one of the first in the country to switch to LEDs. That's what they put in, was 5,000 Kelvin, and then the residents were like, "Oh my gosh!" And they actually spent a couple $100,000 removing the 5,000s, and I think they put in 3,000, which was still bad, but not as bad. So for the small town to have chosen 5,000, has anybody told you why they selected that color temperature? Was there a reason for it? No,
No, I don't think like the thought was that. I think a lot of it is, oh, brighter's better, security, maybe something like that. Those are some of the claims I've been hearing about the very few people who do like that color, but nothing from the officials as to exactly why this lumen or in Kelvin.
Yeah, so what we found is that there's a lot of excuses for why 5,000 was the right choice. It's better for safety for people driving down the main street. You have better visual acuity. There's going to be less accidents. It's better for your safety. You can see the criminals. Um, but it turns out that really basically that's what was the cheapest that they could make. So with a high level of blue, that was the cheapest way to get what they call energy efficient, but what I say is not energy efficient, but which is just a lower quality of light. So these manufacturers, these utility companies just started selling this stuff. So we've talked before on this show about, oh, okay, we were at 5,000 Kelvin, then they dropped it to 4,000 Kelvin, then they dropped it to 3,000 Kelvin, and now and maybe you could talk about this, I think that you are getting your town to drop to 2,000 Kelvin. Is that right?
It's in play, but I eventually, yes, I'm optimistic. So we originally talked about 2,700, but then talked with a person who's worked with dark sky work here, and she said, you could just do 2,200 and under. So we did have a test example at our library where it had the 2,200 right next to the 5,000, and nobody complained about the color. It's more than a few people. I like that color because it reflects a rural character when you go through a
Mm,
small town, and
sure.
I mentioned the lights, the poles that we're using at the top. It's the glass acorn
Hmm.
globe. They're meant to replicate Victorian gaslit lamps.
Hmm.
So
Of course.
it brings it back to what it was meant to look like, kind of a decorative and security feature for the town. So it looks beautiful. We have had some challenges with the lumens of the lights. I could get into that if you all want to hear the nitty gritty.
Well, before I do want to hear it, I would just say, Mark, hopefully, Mr. Strawman hasn't built a strong presence in Vernonia, Oregon. Mr. Strongman is the lighting guy that doesn't have to prove everything. You have to prove him wrong about everything. And so Mr. Strawman shows up and he tells you that no, you can see better in 5,000K light. You need to prove to me why it's wrong. You need to prove to me there's not going to be as much crime if you make this change. He doesn't have to prove anything. So Mr. Strawman is very dangerous in the movement. So you want to make sure that he doesn't show up in Vernonia. And if he does, call me. Um, Tell us about the lumens. Tell us about the lumens.
It's been challenging because, as I mentioned, our current lumens are 5,000. That's what people are used to. We had two examples installed. One was 4,500, so 500 less by the library. And then we had a 6,000 lumen installed by the movie theater. People have been a little iffy about the one that's dimmer. And then the drawback about the one that's brighter, it is brighter. So it's creating its own pollution with the brightness, but the color's right. We are having a hard time finding that color in a bulb that works in our downtown fixtures. We went through the supplier that we had for previously, and I reached out to them and did express we're having some challenges here. The lumen count is just so, the numbers are like 4,320. Who chose that? In my view, it would be really simple if it was 1,000, 2, 3,
Yeah,
etc.
that's
going
not
up
how
this.
light bulbs work, though. But it's interesting. I got a buddy that started this whole podcast thing. His name is Brian Amundsen. He won't mind me saying who he is, and he's the owner of Pacific Lamp in Beaverton, Oregon. And I could hook you guys up after the show, and I'm sure he's a lighting specialist for sure. Like he's a swing through the trees with his knife in his teeth kind of guy when it comes to lighting, like myself. So he'll have access to all sorts of different things that you can work with. But the problem with humans looking at light, okay? So there's a problem fundamentally when that old thing in the mechanical laws or something like that is observing something changes it immediately. So as soon as you like one, you look at something, apparently there's a chemical change. Like if two particles, I don't know how it all works, but anyway, it applies to lighting. I really messed that one up bad, Mark, that analogy. But but anyway, when you ask people to look at a light source and tell you what they think of it, the first thing is that all humans will say whiter is better usually, except outdoors and except now because people are getting sick of it. But in the past, if you went 5 or 10 years ago and you said to someone, look, I changed that street light, and if they look at it and they see all the glare from it and they see that it's white, they're going to say that's better. Now, this is called the photopic illusion. Scotopic, one of the two, scotopic, photopic. It's a photopic illusion. And what it means is that when humans look at light fixtures, they say, which color do you prefer? They used to, in the past, say white and brighter, always. And so that's how we got into this mess, because the lighting industry has used that axiomatic presupposition for years to be Mr. Strawman. Okay? So, when I was younger, we put up lights. Is it brighter? Yeah, it's brighter. Okay, good. It's good. They got more light. There's more value for the money or whatever. So that's how humans think of light. You can't really ask them to look at a light source. It doesn't make any sense to human beings. Look at this light source and tell me what you think. Okay, look at the sun. Tell me what you think of the sun. Like, nobody looks at the sun, okay? Nobody and says, the sun's too bright today. Well, you're looking right at it. You know what I'm saying? That's just that it's nonsensical to do that. So people walk around, they look at lighting systems. We were talking to Sasha before, and the electrician was outside looking up at the light with her, right? This is silliness. What you should do, or you could do, is have someone design it and project the lumens that you need. And then not rather than worrying about the lumens of the lamp, you want to look at the spread of the light, right? Where do you want this light to go, right? Can we retrofit the fixture and make it go where we want it to go till it's an adequate level according to various standards? And those standards exist. Maybe they're a bit high, but I'll tell you, everybody overlights everything, right? And so that's part of the problem. They always want to overlight it just in case. Just in case what? It looks really awful? Just in case you make your town look like crap? So there's people that can help you by not looking at light fixtures and deciding what to do, but by having a professional design the system for you with night preservation, darkness restoration, and light pollution abatement in mind. That can be done.
That would be great. Yeah, it has been challenging finding the right, but I didn't know what a world it was until I really got into it, and there's a lot to it. But it has sparked a conversation in our town. The whole town is talking about light. We're talking about the stars. So I've been encouraged to see that. Social media is what it is. It goes up and down and all around. And there's some people, they're going to come and take our Christmas lights away. Oh, no, we're not. But so there's some of that. But in general, the people that are familiar with what this is about are receptive. They enjoy, that we're in such a community where you should be able to see the Milky Way and just have that kind of rural sensibility just in our infrastructure.
Yeah, light pollution ruins a lot of things, actually. Lives. Mark Baker's done a lot of work about how light pollution can ruin people's lives. It can kill wildlife, fish, and different creatures, and it can destroy the beauty of a small town in Oregon. That's how powerful light pollution is.
I would love to see, getting in the thick of this. There are moments where I think it would be nice if there was a standard, either statewide, fingers crossed. I know, was it 1990? They had the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was a nationwide standard. It is becoming challenging because I've been networking with other communities that have uh, gone through similar, trying to get the right color, right lumens, and everybody's got a different story, and it at times becomes chaotic, but it's a good chaos. We're all moving towards a good cause, but it has made it challenging when there's so many different things each town experiences.
Yeah, what you need is to introduce an expert, right? Like someone that's actually an expert. And there's experts out there. Like your town is not that small. You could probably afford to have an expert come in and, these are our priorities, right? That we want to have a lighting system that is, adequate so that people can walk down the street. And but we want it to be low Kelvin temperature. 1800 was what I would aim for. I would be even more ambitious. And we want it to have very low glare, and we want only the light where we need it. And we want to reuse our existing beautiful bollards, and we want to make them look like gas lanterns. See, there's people that know how to do that.
When in our town here, at least.
What's
Sorry,
that?
go ahead, Mark.
Oh, well, the difficulty, Michael, is that LEDs are such a drastically different technology. It's directional. It's got all these spectral properties as well. Plus, it might have this square wave flicker, which we haven't really talked about, but that might not be the issue. But to me, it's this directionality. So no matter how much you reduce the lumens, it still can feel intense
Mm-hmm.
because it's in this directional beam. And that's where we do need an expert. I'm concerned I haven't really found the right expert myself, but I've come to the belief that we need computer modeling. Can't use the traditional lux meter to measure the lights. You can't just talk about lumens. You need it to stick it in one of these fancy computers that
Mm-hmm.
generates a 3D model for you that shows for you. And they have this, but
Mm-hmm.
where exactly? They have the computer technology. They have the modeling technology. Um, and we've had guests on this show that have used the modeling that can tell us where the light goes, how it
Mm-hmm.
bounces off the street, how it bounces off the buildings, how it reaches the eye or whatever. And it would be very cool to see in 3D what this light looks like. That may be a bit much for a 2,000 person town, but that's really
No,
how
that's
LED
there's
work.
manufacturers that would do that for them for free, as part of a way to get
Wow.
the project. Yeah, I know. Like, and the other thing too is I think I have a solution to some of those other problems. But what I think. Listen, there's also a momentum to this, Mark, and so we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good for Michael.
Yeah.
They're going to go
Yeah.
LED. I'm telling you right now. There's no way you're talking Vernonia, Oregon out of LED. I hear you, Mark. I love you, buddy. But they're going in this direction, and nothing's going to stop that train at this point. But there's a lot of options for you guys, and yeah, I think that the town of Vernonia could really benefit from some of the connections that Mark and I have.
Yeah, that'd
Michael,
be great.
oh, there's two Michaels on this show today. Michael Michael Calhoun, what's the feedback from the city council? Are they allies of yours? Do you have it split
Good question.
50-50 split? Or is the mayor with you? How's that part of the politics work?
A lot's been happening since the article was published that is referenced. Um, I was born and raised here, so I have established connections with people in the community, and it's all about respect. Even though we're politically different with different people in different positions, it's how can you respectfully work together. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful that I have had that. Our former council, we had one more member who was more supportive. We have a new person who's not as supportive, but we still had a 3-2 margin. We did just have a meeting 2 days ago, and it got a bit rocky, and things are a little bit on pause right now. What I did have done was have a resolution drafted. Difference between an ordinance resolution. Ordinance has teeth. I'm working with who I'm working with. I could get a resolution, couldn't get an ordinance, at least the here and now. So I have the language drafted, and the resolution is meant so that there's consistency in Vernonia's lights. That if and when, when at this point we get the amber colored lights, when they go out years from now, that they're then replaced with amber. So it's not a checkerboard map of different companies, different colors. We want a consistency no matter who's in positions of power at the council. So social media being the way that it is, we had some concerned citizens show up at that meeting and were concerned about overreach. So we had conversations there, and that's kind of where we're at right now. It's kind of at a pause, but I've had private conversations with different folks who are in different positions, and it will happen. Just not today, but it is going to happen. So I'm feeling really optimistic, and when you come through Vernonia, you'll get to see that amber glow sooner than later. So that's why I'm really excited about.
I love your style.
I look around now, I see how it is, but I'm excited knowing what it's going to be.
I love the positivity, Mark, and I love the politeness. You should be a Canadian. When Trump said the 51st state, the first thing I thought of is Canadians do not want to be Americans. I'll tell you that right now. Okay, that is politically toxic in Canada. Okay, to become American, not because we don't like Americans, but we just think that Minnesota is really part of Canada, actually. Like Minnesota is like that. Those are good people in Minnesota. I like Minnesotans. Minnesotans like us. We kind of get along. You know what I mean? The people in Manitoba and Minnesota all come from the heritage backgrounds in Northern Ontario. Upstate New York and, Washington and Oregon, they're kind of like Canada, actually. A lot more like Canada than they are, I think, than the United States. So that being said, though, I love the respectful dialogue. It sounds like a Canadian-style council where people are polite, but they have knives behind their backs. But on this show, we don't have to be respectful. We can be a little more critical. And I think that we're being asked to do that. So what I would say is I like your hopefulness. I like the idea of a resolution. But the dialogue between people that want to pollute or are in favor of light pollution, right? They don't know what they're talking about. That needs to be made clear. You know what I'm saying? And I've always struggled with that because you encounter this defensiveness that's related to safety and Mr. Safety man is here and, you're going to be saying, well, what if something happens and it has to be because of the lights? No, it doesn't have to be because of the lights, actually. Things can happen when there's lights on and there's lights off. And even, Michael, we see lots of things happen while people are filming. Never mind lighting. Right? People do crazy stuff on subways and in train stations when they know at airports where they know there's police and they know people are filming. So this idea that if something goes wrong in Vernonia, Oregon, and someone trips or there's an accident or there's an attack, it has to be because of the lights. That is such a pile of nonsense. It's nonsense, Michael. And people's talking like that, they need to be told that that's nonsense. But it's very difficult to get that across in these kinds of meetings. It's almost like you have to give a hearing to this light pollution advocate. Not light pollution abatement advocate, but this person that just thinks we need lots of light pollution in this town because I'm scared. And I know the lights are going to save me. This is ridiculous.
I've been thankful we've only had in person 3 people like that. Online, it's a different world, but my experience here is when I get in the real world and I bring different projects and advocate for different things, that's what really makes the difference. It's a real person really talking. It has been rare when I've had anyone get in my face. We did have a feisty meeting on Monday though. So, but they're good about calming so it doesn't turn into a Parks and Rec episode or something.
Sure.
So they calmed it down. But there's that element. It's I'm going to trip, and I actually like this light, and they don't really like it. They just don't like what it's about. So they different angles in our council now. Like I said, it's a little more not as friendly as it was before January 1st when they're sworn in. But like I mentioned, it will happen, just not quite the timeline I was hoping for or expecting, but I know that it will. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes people do need to be called out on their BS, and this is not a legitimate forum for you to spout out, what you think is happening. There's a difference between how you feel about something and the facts and figures.
Exactly. Like we're here to talk compromise. And when somebody starts talking about lighting in terms of safety or crime and all that, they're talking about not compromising or not making a deal or not looking at the facts, right? So those people need to you have to find a way to very politely, in your Vernonia, Oregon polite way, respectfully work together to tell those people to be quiet. Okay, have you encountered the worst of all, Mr. Right to Light Pollute? Have you encountered that guy yet? I'm American. This is my property, and I can do whatever I want on my property. Have you encountered that guy yet? He's the best.
Online.
Online, okay.
Not in person. Yeah. Online, it's just that's where people like that seem to proliferate. I have learned that, I think there's a place for social media. You post stuff, you learn some things, but as far as a dialogue, it's just almost non-existent. It's just people are there with a bone to pick, and it doesn't matter what you here's some information. Nope, I'm still going at it. So, but my experience anyway, I can't speak for others, is been either phone calls, Zoom meetings, or in person. It's more of a, oh, okay, I didn't think of it that way, and I'm going to think about it some more before I give an answer. But at least there's something coming out of it versus just going at it over and there's no solution.
Michael Calhoun, I heard a phrase that from a environmental investigator. Anyway, best available science. And I like that. And that's a phrase maybe you can throw around with anybody, right? To sort of push back the straw man that says, oh, I need this for my physical safety, or I need this for my visual acuity. And then you can throw back that term. Okay, well, let's use the best available science.
I'll keep a mind to use that. That would have been good at one of our former meetings that we had, because it was one of the topics brought up to counter it was, things are always changing. Why wasn't this brought up before? Well, this is the best available science. That's very good. Thank you for that. I'll be sure to use that.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a document that the Soft Lights Foundation created that has a lot of links to research papers and some of this best available science, and you can use it how you want. Pick and choose, share that with them. And because you are such a logical, calm person with a talent for doing this kind of thing, I think such a document can be helpful, and just use your polite Canadian/Oregon way to convince these people that what you're saying is correct.
Well, thank you for that.
I got a comment and a question for future state senator Michael Calhoun. He's very poised. This guy's got big future in front of him. If you want to go into politics, dude, you're good. I can see it. I can see the ego chick out there for a second. He's going to go for it. But you know what the problem with social media or even text messaging? Like, I counsel so many people to be careful with text messaging. Because when we're texting or when we're entering text, the person cannot smell us. They can't hear the sound of our voice. They can't see the features of our face. And so there's a dehumanization process that's going on online. And so then people will automatically imbue the worst possible tone into whatever it is you're saying because they're trying to defend their position. So they're going to read your words out loud in their head, and they're going to make it sound critical or rude or whatever. And so it's just this escalatory process on social media that's a complete waste of time. Like Facebook and Twitter and text messaging, these are anti-productivity tools. They're the opposite of productivity. They don't help anybody do anything. So, maybe get famous, I don't know, the people get famous on those things. Sometimes they make money, I guess. But overall, it's just a waste of time and it's a waste of your resources. Except maybe the Restoring Darkness podcast could enter the online debate in Vernonia, Oregon. If you send us a couple people to on the LinkedIn post or whatever, and we can send them we can put a couple clips from LinkedIn on and at people about this conversation. And I think that might help the debate a little bit, swing it back to the rational and reasonable side that you're talking about, Michael.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Michael, were you able to connect with the health department for the county on this issue?
No, I was trying to square away Vernonia first, and what I wanted to do, next step was involve the county, and then that's where I wanted to try to maybe see the county if they could have the similar color. But that is on my list to do, is to reach out the health link that you had sent.
We have not been successful in getting county health departments to care about this light pollution issue, even though it is having such a massive effect, adverse effect on our health. There are significant increases in the rates of cancer, even for young people, and that shouldn't be happening. And the doctors are saying, well, we don't really know, but we do know. Light pollution is one of the major reasons for this. We're having mood disorders. We're having increases in diabetes, just all kinds of health effects due to light pollution. But I've contacted many county health departments and I don't get a response. So I'm throwing that out there for you to go and bring them, if you can, bring them into the conversation. Not just about the change in the lights in the county, but what's the best available science for light pollution and the impacts on the health of the residents of the whole county, including Vernonia.
Yeah, I can't disagree with Mark. I'm in the lighting industry, Michael, and it's probably a good part now to throw the last word over to you after I ask this question here, if Mark's okay with that. The debate surrounding light pollution is quickly moving from stargazing to actual human health problems and wildlife too, but wildlife will be secondary. I mean, some of the stuff that Dr. Mata said on the episode that we released on January 2nd, which caused a huge, crazy storm of stuff in the lighting industry. The lighting industry is having a really hard time, Michael, accepting that people like Mark Baker are onto something. Now, I don't know if Mark's 100% right. I mean, what I always say is I think Mark's the best in the lighting, he's not in the lighting industry, but he's the best at telling us what the problems are. These are problems. These are real problems with light pollution. And I would love to see a town like Vernonia do everything it can to avoid those problems. And I think your leadership is going to accomplish that, Michael.
Well, I'm glad Mark's been getting the word out there, because that's how I came across, watching the videos and articles, and I saw the name. I thought, I'll reach out. Here's what I got going on here. So the word is getting out there, which is good.
Folks, if you want to support the Soft Lights Foundation, you go to softlights.org. And you can do more than buy Mark a cup of coffee. Maybe donate a couple $1,000. You Americans are rich, and you're very generous, actually. Americans, one thing I said that bad things about, but Americans are actually the most generous people in terms of charitable giving in the world. They give the most to charity and to nonprofits. Americans don't know that, but Europeans are stingy. Canadians are pretty good compared to America because we're close to America and we're kind of a little bit American in some ways. Shh, don't get mad, Scott. We're kind of like the same in some ways. Canadians are generous, but Americans are the most. So if you want to give away some money, if you feel like it's burning a hole in your pocket and you want to give it to a good cause, you can go to softlights.org and you can donate to Mark's work there. Or you can go, if you want to support the production of this show, you can go to restoringdarkness.com and you can donate there. Why not become a monthly donor? We have 2 already. We got 2 monthly donors, Mark, every month. Yeah, we got 2 people that donate to the show every month. Why not join us? Join us in the movement. Be a guest on the Restoring Darkness podcast. Tell us your story like future state senator Michael Calhoun. He just has such a great poise, and we need leadership like this from you people out there to get into this a little bit. Care about your town, care about the way it looks, the beauty of it, especially in a place in the wilderness that you want to preserve that heritage, that night, that darkness. You don't want that light pollution invading and making everything ugly and nasty. You go to restoringdarkness.com, you go to softlights.org. Thank you for listening.